And a woman who murdered her boyfriend's 6-year-old son has been jailed for life. Arthur Labinjo-Hughes was starved and beaten by Emma Tustin, who has been told she will serve at least 29 years in prison. Arthur's father, Thomas Hughes, has been jailed for 21 years for manslaughter. The judge at Coventry Crown Court said the boy led a lonely and solitary life and their actions were spiteful, dehumanising and sadistic. Well, joining me now is our correspondent Helen Westerman, who is the head of... we are going to go to the NSPCC, but first of all, we're going to go to our correspondent Helena Wilkinson, I think, who has been following this in Coventry. Helena, this has been an utterly horrific, distressing case to see unfold. Just tell us more about what the judge said in sentencing these two today.
Well, the judge today, when he sentenced Tustin and Hughes, and important to point out that Tustin was brought to the court here. However, she refused to come up to the courtroom to be sentenced. She remained in the cells, but the judge continued as if she was in the courtroom when he sentenced the pair today. The judge, Justice Wall, said the case was one of the most distressing and disturbing that he had ever dealt with. He said neither defendant had shown any remorse for their behaviour and that their behaviour was spiteful and sadistic. And he also said one of the most troubling aspects of this case was that Tustin's own two children, he said, lived a perfectly happy life in that house just yards from where Arthur was subjected to unthinkable abuse. He said to Tustin that she was a manipulative woman, and as you say today, he has sentenced her to life in prison with a minimum term of 29 years. He sentenced Hughes, Arthur's father, to 21 years in prison. And as you say, the most harrowing case, and jurors here during the 2-month trial had to hear and listen to the most difficult details about what happened to 6-year-old Arthur and the cruelty, the unimaginable cruelty that was inflicted on him by both Hughes and Tustin. He was left dehydrated, he was starved, he was force-fed salt-laced meals, and he was also left in the lounge to sleep on the floor without a mattress, and the jury was shown CCTV of 6-year-old Arthur in the lounge in the days and on the morning before he was murdered by Tustin, and he appeared to have a limp. He looked incredibly weak. He was crying and he was struggling to lift up a duvet. The court also heard today some victim personal statements. That's an opportunity for family members to tell those who've committed the crimes about the impact that they have had on them. And we heard from Arthur's paternal grandmother, Joanne Hughes, who said today in court that Arthur was happy, was joyous, was exuberant, and that his death had turned their life into perpetual grey. It also emerged during the trial that Arthur had been seen by social workers 2 months before he died. It was Joanne Hughes, his paternal grandmother, who spotted a bruise on Arthur, but the trial heard that it was concluded by the social workers that there were no safeguarding concerns. But there is a independent review now underway, which will be talking to all of the authorities and those who may have come into contact with Arthur to see if there were opportunities missed. But unimaginable cruelty that was inflicted by Hughes and Tustin on a 6-year-old defenceless little boy. And they have today been sentenced, as I say, Tustin to life with a minimum term of 29 years, and Hughes, Arthur's father, who was convicted yesterday here of manslaughter, he has been sentenced today to 21 years.
Helena Wilkinson in Coventry, thank you very much indeed for that. Well, joining me now is Helen Westerman, the head of NSPCC local campaigns. The details are, of course, horrific, really unbearable to listen to. What's your reaction to hearing about yet another horrific case in Britain's history?
I think we're all still struggling to come to terms with what Arthur endured before he was killed by Tustin and Hughes, and their sentencing marks the end of the first stage in achieving some sort of justice for Arthur. That child safeguarding practice review must now leave no stone unturned in establishing exactly what took place before Arthur died and whether more could have been done to protect and ultimately save him. But it also needs to inform a wider discussion of how we prevent these appalling cases of child cruelty from ever happening again.
Of course, we hear that sentiment every time that these tragic cases unfold, and yet they recur. What is the wider problem with preventing this sort of behaviour, given if social services and the police are alerted by family members in any case, why is a family then, why is any child still vulnerable?
I mean, in this situation, we'll have to wait to the serious case review and the safeguarding practice review in relation to Arthur, but more widely, it's very challenging for those working in local authorities. This happened at the beginning of the pandemic, perhaps when different working practices were in place. That's no excuse, but this inquiry will really look at what was missed, if anything, in relation to Arthur. We certainly heard at the NSPCC during the first year of the lockdown, we had an increase in the number of contacts to the NSPCC, a 23% increase from members of the public concerned about child welfare. So, people are coming forward and are talking about this, and that needs to be actioned.
And when it's not actioned, what is the reason? Is it lack of will? Is it lack of organisation, lack of resources, lack of expertise? What is the what are the the actual reasons for repeat failure by these organisations?
There can be a number of different reasons, and each serious case review will outline what's happened. That could be a lack of communication. We also know that frontline social workers are extremely stretched. So, I mean, for this inquiry, we'll find out what happened and if anything was missed in the case of Arthur.
Is the training of social workers where it needs to be? Do they know, is there expertise in looking out for the signs when children, people might be will be covering up this sort of action?
I mean, I think it's really, social workers obviously are trained and are dealing with this sort of situation, not so extreme, but day in, day out. And again, this inquiry will really unpick what happened, whether anything was missed, and what could have been done differently to potentially save Arthur.
OK, we will leave it there. Helen Westerman from the NSPCC, thank you very much indeed.